everyone. I am Spencer Pacetta. Um, you've seen me twice today somehow. I don't know how I conned Alyssa, Mike, and Carly into letting me show up 3 times, and this is nuts. This is going to be a lot of information and then some fun stuff. So please bear with me through the center part of the presentation when I talk a lot about code, which is not fun for, it's not fun for me, but it's informational and it's necessary. So inspirational quote to get us started. Screenshot that if you will. It shows up at the end too. So who the heck am I? I am 2 years out from graduating from Endicott College with a bachelor's of science in sport management and applied mathematics. No one had ever tried that before, that particular combination. So needless to say, that was an interesting experience. I'm currently the head writer and editor of women's hockey content for Pride Diehards. I spent 2 years with the UNH women's hockey program as a volunteer statistician and video analyst. And during that time, I completed my senior thesis at Endicott on increasing offensive efficiency in NCAA women's ice hockey in 2019. Published it late last year. That project informs a lot of the first half of this presentation. What is this? It's a lot of things. There's a dearth of analysis and event data in NCAA women's ice hockey, and that bothers me as someone who is a invested emotionally member of that community. But this project should also allow teams to develop a means of statistical analysis with minimal financial requirements. So it's really helpful for programs that are routinely underfunded, like women's sports in general. It also doesn't require a tremendous amount of training to institute. So the title of the presentation, XG for Dummies, really rings true. It really is for people that don't have a lot of experience or training in analytics. So the data set that I used was all tracked by myself. I manually tracked 2 years worth of event data, and it took several years off my lifespan, but I wouldn't have traded for anything. This is how I broke down a shot attempt, the strength, whether or not a shot assist existed, the relative shot quality, shot type, the danger level, which is the important one, and then the outcome. This is, I also track takeaways, giveaways, penalties drawn, zone entries and exits. I calculated the Corsi and Fenwick and relative Corsi and Fenwick for each player, game score, safety quotient, which is a stat that I invented that is literally just the differential between takeaways and giveaways, and goals saved above average. As a condition of me being able to use this data in my research, I will release the data, but the data that I release, all of the players have been anonymized. I don't know how to say that word. I made them anonymous. There are no player names in the data. There were 8,217 individual unique shot attempts in this data set. So I feel like that's a relatively large sample to work with. Some downsides to this: it's individually tracked data by myself, so there's bound to be human error and bias involved. It also focuses heavily on one team, obviously, being that I was working with one team. So it's heavily influenced by their play style and skill level, as well as that of their opponents, particularly being in Hockey East. Some boring parts. These are the packages and sub-packages I worked with in Python, in Jupyter Notebooks to build out the model. First, you go through and I removed all the on-ice information, so all the players that are on the ice at a given time. It's a lot easier to build and work through the model that way. From the data frame, then group it by the different individual subgroups of combinations of categorical data. The raw totals were then calculated for each group and repeated for each subgroup. And then a new data frame was created for each subgroup. I told you this part is boring. We'll get through it together. Let's analyze the categorical data, shall we? Grouping it by shot danger, the interesting parts is that low and mid danger goals scored rates were relatively similar compared to what I expected. Low danger shots are super likely to get blocked, so I would really have advised players to stop shooting from out in distance. It's really aggressive. There's a low overall goal rate in total anyways, but primarily focused on high danger outcomes. Grouping it by shot type, I found it ironic that players were more likely to score on a backhander than a slap shot in the data set. Really strange, something that you wouldn't expect, but then you take a look at slap shots and see the rate at which they got blocked, and it suddenly makes a lot of sense. Pre-shot movement was not as big of a factor as I expected. It seems to indicate that there's a more individualistic focus on goal scoring, so maybe a higher influence and reliance on the star players to generate offense, seeing as how the sheer number of shot attempts that did not have a preceding shot assist were more than twice the number of the ones that did. Looking at shot quality, so a transition shot is any shot that has a cross-ice pass directly preceding it, or the puck moves from one side of the ice to the other. A rush attempt is literally someone skating in over the blue line and taking a shot within like 3 seconds. Redirection is pretty self-explanatory, but I also counted redirections typically as a one-timer at the side of the net, like a tap-in. That would be considered a redirection as well. Rebounds are self-explanatory. Clean shots are basically everything else. So anything that didn't have excessive pre-shot movement, you're already set up in the zone, you're just curling around and you're taking a shot. Grouping it by multiple subgroups, you kind of see how it breaks down how often the pre-shot movement with shot assists influence high danger shots comparatively to the low danger areas. Shockingly, the high danger area, there weren't a lot of cross crease passes. There wasn't a lot of puck movement pre-shot. Regardless of puck movement, low danger shots were supremely ineffective, but I found it really interesting that the players were more likely to get a shot blocked if they were making a pass directly beforehand than if not. Grouping it by danger and quality, again, you kind of see the breakdown. I'm hoping that if you are interested in further analyzing all the graphs, you can go back through. I'm not going to take all your time trying to analyze 6,000 graphs. Same with shot danger and type. It seems to me that the quicker shot attempts, so a wrist shot, a snapshot, were highly unlikely to be taken from a low danger area, and likely to be less effective. So the faster your shot is from a low danger area, the more effective it will be. That obviously wasn't the plan for a lot of players, so perhaps influencing that would be beneficial. Now we get to the modeling part. I built a standard logistical model to help evaluate what was going on using the logistical model train test split data, create the dummy variables, build out exactly what you are going to be using for the actual model to evaluate. I then use SMOTE, which is synthetic minority oversampling. It balances the training data to smooth out any potential issues. It gives you a more balanced data set to train the model on, and it doesn't affect the test data. This is what this spits out. The model was relatively effective. I don't love it, but this is what happens in stats, is sometimes you don't get things you love. It ran 8 times to give all this. It really, there's a lot going on here, and I'm not 100% thrilled with how that part turned out. But looking at the ROC curve, receiver operating characteristic, the false positivity rate was low relative to what I expected. The accuracy of the classifier is about a little under 80.8, so it's good, not great. Like I said, you can see what the actual model regression used for variables input. The small little matrix on the right, that is the confusion matrix. It gives you from left to right, top to bottom, the true positive, false negative, false positive, true negative iterations of prediction in the model, and then all of your precision and recall at the bottom. That kind of quickly summarizes, I say, the original thesis. So then we get to what I wanted to do with it to make it a little more usable for everyone, because I think we can agree that even I don't fully understand all of this thus far. So how is this going to work for someone that doesn't have a lot of training? This is a representation of how I judge visually the high, middle, and low danger shooting areas, how I was tracking it manually in the categorical data for everything. So I use Shapely to build polygons to represent those specific areas in the data. The coordinate plane is a direct 1-to-1, 1 foot per 1 unit for a standard 200 by 85 foot rink. So this gives you in the offensive zone what it would look like to build out that specific danger quadrant, I would say. Then I asked the program to generate random points within each of those polygons and assign them to shot attempts based on what the shot danger was. So high danger shots all got points assigned randomly in that smaller net front area, so on and so forth. Then I defined the origin point, which is the direct center or theoretical center of the net. I realized that it isn't, every goal does not go in directly in the center of the net, but it's a reasonable approximation of what a goal scored would be. So that is what I used to calculate the distance from the net. Then that distance was assigned in a separate column to the data set. I teased this on Twitter. I have heat maps. So I ran this randomization numerical bit 5 separate times to kind of suss out any potential issues, make sure it looked right. The map on the right is all shot attempts. The map on the left is goals scored. So keep an eye, they're exactly in the same spot on each slide, so you can see visually the difference between the groups and how similar they are as well. The average distance for a goal scored in this first run was a little under 32 feet from the net. Shot attempts that didn't score a goal, a little under 60 feet. Yes, I realize that it's not overlaid on a rink. Sometimes, again, we don't get the things we want. I couldn't figure this out. Run 2 is a little bit different. you kind of see it as it moves its way through each iteration. It gives you different average distances, but they're all within a reasonable range and approximation. You can see the goal scoring. It's still focused super in the high end area, and it slows its way out as it goes towards the neutral zone. The average distances across the 5 iterations, it's about 32.5 feet for a goal to be scored in the data set. Shot attempts that weren't scored, a little under half that, so about 60.5 feet. Whew. So what the heck does this mean? Ideally, this could be expanded to other leagues and data sets that don't have proper infrastructure to do this. I'd like to figure out a way to overlay heat maps onto rinks. That would look nice. It would make me feel better about it. I'd like to build a numerical training set for the model to use existing location-based data to train the model to be a little more accurate. But in order to do that, I need more data. Always more data. It's always the answer. There's a long list of people to thank for this. The entire coaching staff at UNH, Hillary Witt, Steph Jones, Bill Bowes, Steph Walsh, and the entire roster of the 18-19 and 19-20 teams. Hockey Graphs for somehow accepting me into the program. Alyssa for being a patient and helpful mentor, especially when I went for long stretches during the pandemic that I just didn't want to do any of it. Motivation was hard. Mike Murphy for being an excellent sounding board. Matt Barlow for consulting on the original code for the thesis. My 2 thesis advisors, Dr. Catherine Kilty and Professor Michael Deal, for helping me navigate the idea for a thesis paper for a double major that didn't exist. There was no blueprint, and we were making it up on the fly. Ryan Stimson for his initial insight. Mike Craddy for being a close ally to bounce things off of. Nyan and Carly for being great friends and resources in the analytics community. And my family for putting up with my nonsense and not understanding a thing that I'm talking about and still not throwing me out of the house for it. This is my contact info if you're trying to find me. I'm broke, so please hire me. Does anyone have any questions?
Hello, give me 30 seconds. The stream is stuttering a tiny bit. I am just fixing it so it runs smoother. Oh, I am here. Nice. Wait, no, I'm not in the right thing. They can't hear me. Where is it? Where are you? Where do you live? Oh, they can hear me. Did they just not complain the entire time? Weird. Can't believe no one yelled at me for my keyboard. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if it's stabilizing. They just did the thing where it was like, poor stable on Twitch's end, but like on my end, it's showing that it's perfectly. Oh yeah, there's a couple of drop frames. I do see that now. That's okay. Give us a second. I closed a tab. I did the mistake. I googled. We did have a question, but I'm gonna find it now. It was after I accidentally started a chain of heat maps. One, it was more of a comment than a question from Mike, but he was saying, I wonder what percentage of backhanders ends up as high shots by nature, just in case you have any thoughts on that.
I think that that's interesting. I have the numerical data somewhere. I have it. The code spits it out for me. I have to dig that up. I can talk to Mike later about that. But yeah, there definitely weren't a lot of mid and low danger backhanders. I can tell you that much.
And another one, which I think you kind of answered already, but are you planning on releasing any of this code for people to try it themselves in like their own contexts?
Yeah. So my GitHub account will have this uploaded to it eventually. I have some cleaning to do on it. there's some leftover code from things that do and don't work.
Don't we all?
That I want to get rid of before I release it. But in the next week or so, I should be able to release it along with the slides and everything, and the anonymized data set. Still can't say that word. I promise English is my first language.
De-identified is the word you're going for, by the way.
That would be why. Yeah, I've always wondered why that's
I
that's
tried
a problem.
to whisper it to you through the mic during the talk, but I didn't do it loud enough. I was like, I know the word, I can help.
Yeah, no. So that data will also be available, so you can test it and make sure that it works before you go playing around with it. But yeah, the whole point of this project was to be able to develop something that other people could use and expand the uses of. So it would not be in my nature to not release it. I wouldn't hide it and keep it for myself. I promise.
One last one. Were there any other like surprising trends that emerged while you were looking at this? Obviously, the backhand shots going in more than slap shots being the obvious ones. But were there any other, cool little quirks?
I think the lack of puck movement on rush attempts was a little surprising to me. You always think about how many odd player rushes we generate in women's hockey, and it seemed to me that players were less willing to make that pass initially, and I don't know what that reasoning is. Again, this is all the opponent shots, but it's about 50% of the shot attempts are from one team. So part of that is also a stylistic thing and strategic thing from the team involved. I think that I was shocked at how little puck movement in general, pre-shot movement there was. And that kind of lends itself to how frustrating the offensive numbers were for the team. In 2 years, they consistently underperformed their expected metrics that I was calculating. I have a master data sheet that's about 300 columns of information that I have calculating automatically the information for all the on ice and all that stuff, all the micro stats, and the team consistently underperformed all their expected goal scoring stuff. Something tells me that that's part of it. I'm not 100% sure. I honestly need more data to really make any concrete, wide sweeping claims about this. This is very rudimentary, basic, entry level stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. It has been an absolute joy being your mentor. I think we've both been simultaneously as flaky as each other. So glad after 2 years we finally managed to get something out.
Yeah, I don't actually remember when I got accepted to the program, but it was definitely well before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was 2019.
Yeah.
Well,
we made
better
it.
late than never.
Yeah.
We got there. Anyway, we're going to head to an up next scene, and then after that we'll have Ben with the last official presentation of the day.